And just like that, we back. Love and Marriage Huntsville, Season 10, Episode 3. You already know this your girl, Miss Terry Flower, and you are now tuned in to the Terry Flower Show. I'm just excited, y'all, so we're going to go ahead and get into it. All right, so this episode starts off with the fight that we left off on. You hear me? So they didn't show us nothing, but we heard the little scuffle back there with Ken and Marquez, and then we just seen Marquez come to the front. He throwing stuff. He upset. Okay, now the man told you to get out of his house. You better learn how to listen. Sometimes, you know, people biggest downfall is not knowing how to follow directions. But whatever. We're gonna go and move on. Now we have Kimmy doing her annual messy check-in and have all the women come together because she heard it's been some things going on, honey. So she want to bring them all together so they can go ahead and discuss it. I ain't mad at it, Kimmy. Go ahead. Kimmy and Maurice have their little date night around their fire in their backyard. I must admit, y'all look real cozy, look real beautiful back there. So I like that. Go ahead now. Had their little tea. They was around the fire and stuff. Real nice, you know. And then Kimmy went to talking about how her and Jalen's relationship has changed because now he is an adult. It's after college, and it's like our relationship has changed. And I was talking to the kids about, you know, us starting a business, and, you know, the kids have reservations, you know, because you do this dictatorship thing. He was like, yeah, y'all don't even like to work with me because I have rules. Excuse me, sir? What he said now? Hold up. Let me say, that's because you talk a lot. Work little and talk a lot. Don't nobody want to hear all that and you ain't putting in no work. Tell him, Kimmy. Hello. Bingo. Damn. When Kimmy looked at Maurice and she said, yeah, I was just talking to Jalen about that. And, you know, he just told me, you know, when it come to looking at like father figures, he never really looked at you like a father figure. And child, they going to play the little flashback. That boy say it was like, he was like the homie. He never really made me feel like a son. I was like, oh, I know that got to be a gut punch. Well, goodness gracious. All right. Well, Maurice says it was a gut punch. You know what I'm saying? Jalen looks up more to Marceau as a father figure than he does him, you know, and it hurt his feelings. You can tell. It hurt his little heart. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and move on. And now we're looking at the Fletchers. The Fletchers look good. You already know they coming through looking good. Mr. Fletcher and Mrs. Fletcher, they doing the thing. Go ahead. You hear me now? But anyway, she working on getting her stars, so she need him to come around there and do some work around that daycare because, you know, they got the daycare, they got the cleaning business, and they got the real estate company. I said they own a big, beautiful house too, honey. When they let the camera come on in, I said, go ahead now. But anyway, Miss Nell lets Chris know that Kimmy called her or whatever like that, and then he asked her about how she's spoken to Destiny, and Miss Nell goes into how she's like canceled Destiny. I'm like, Miss Nell, what is your thing with this counseling word? I don't know, but we're gonna keep moving. I counsel her long conversations. Girl, y'all were talking. Am I tripping? Y'all tell me. Girl, you was just talking to this lady. Y'all was just having conversations, honey. Lord have mercy. But anywho, but she was just saying that they have a relationship. You know what I'm saying? That they you know, they have a relationship with each other or whatever. So Miss Nell trying to decide if she should say something to Destiny at this little sit down that they gonna all have or whatever like that. And Fletcher like, yeah, go ahead. You know, yeah, I'm really interested in what she has to say. I'm like, his man says. But whatever. So it's time for this dinner and everybody is coming down, you know, walking down the sidewalk. I said, y'all better get it. Everybody look real nice. I said, okay. Y'all look like y'all got some money. All right. So all the ladies show up except for Destiny. Well, in the words of Kimmy, she in them TikTok streets. So Destiny could not come. Okay. Now everybody else showed up. They do their little pleasantries. Hey. Oh, let me see your boots. Oh, them your boots. No, these just regular boots. You know, all that. Anyway, so when they sit down, Trisha go ahead into telling the story about how Ken and Marquez got the scuffle. And I told y'all we heard the little scuffle in the background. Kimmy go ahead and tell them about how her baby Jalen don't look at Maurice as a father figure. He looks more at Marceau like that. And she's like, yeah, well, he did work. He had more time spent with Marceau. You know, he worked at this company and this company with him. You know, then she get in the confessional talking about, well, you know, it was just Kimmy and Jalen for so long. He has to embrace Maurice as a father figure. Girl, shut up. Maurice got to be a father figure. That's why Kimmy said he's very hands off. Kimmy was letting you know, girl, it's Maurice. Girl, it ain't my baby. Because if that was the case, why he embraced your brother? Why he embraced your husband? Excuse me, I'm talking about your brother. Why he embraced your husband as a father figure, but didn't embrace this nigga? Because this nigga ain't have his arms open. All right, we're gonna go move on. My bad, y'all. So Nell go ahead and let us know she got 2 grandbabies. They 5 months apart. She says that she didn't know that her son was having a baby or whatever like that. Okay, girl, whatever. We don't care. Anyway, she goes into talking about the situation with Destiny, and she's like, hey, it was already a red flag with Destiny before I even found out anything about the baby, before that situation. She was like, no, she just showed me some things, and it was like, red flag. And I'm like, girl, they finna run this back so fast on you, girl. By the time you get home, take your damn coat off. They gonna already be done ran this information, honey. Goodness gracious. Then, like Miss Nell, she clocked how Tisha Esquire was asking a lot of questions. So she said, you know what, I got a lot of questions for you too. And she said, you know, Tisha and Kimmy, how do y'all feel about what Martell said? Tisha immediately went to roll her eyes. I was like, girl, we're gonna answer these questions, okay? I'm hollering, baby, because Kimmy is giving her the serious face. Tisha looking like she disgusted, okay? And you know the little thing he was talking about, the little mystery mistresses, see, okay? He was talking about that both of their husbands be having, all right? Honey, they ain't like that. Tom gonna ask Miss Nell, well, what did you think about it? You know, I would say, child, couldn't be Miss Nell. I'm like, child, it really don't matter what I thought, because at the end of the day, they ain't my husband. I'm asking how y'all feel. Maybe you could help a woman out here or something. I don't know, you know, save a marriage. Oh, what we are witnessing is a sad sight to see these 2 women fighting for their life, trying to act like it don't matter to them what they heard about these mystery mistresses, okay? I don't even know if that's a word, honey, because Tisha is over there uncomfortable, ain't got nothing to say. Then Kimmy said something that didn't really make no sense. Kimmy was like, it wasn't even believable. And even if it was believable, I would have still been like, nah, bruh. And I'm like, girl, what?
What do you mean by that?
Girl, what does that even mean? Okay. Oh, honey, Tisha say, cause Trisha asked, well, did you guys speak to Maurice and Marsol about how you guys felt about it? Tisha was like, well, me and my husband went live, so if you want to see how I felt about it, go look on the live. And I was like, oh, Tisha, you were a little upset, baby. Is everything okay? Goodness. Okay, so Tisha is on one with Miss Nell. I'm not all the way sure why she on this with Miss Nell. Okay, whatever. I'm gonna move on. Anyway, but anywho, Miss Nell up here explaining herself, honey, because Tisha was like, you know, we got a problem with each other. Anybody here? We need to discuss it with the person here and not to other people. You know, she was very defensive, okay? And Miss Nell was like, oh, no, I have no problem with nobody here. You know, if I have a problem, you know, I would say, you know, I'm not good with holding in. And, you know, I said, Miss Nell, you got Tisha, girl. You know that Tisha got you up here explaining yourself, girl. A mess. Anyway, now Kimmy and Letitia are coming at Miss Nell for what Chris Fletcher to be exact, what her husband said about, you know, having women sign NDAs and, you know, all that stuff like that right now. You know, when he was having that little conversation, okay, they didn't like that. And Kim was like, yeah, even Maurice felt the way, because he's like, even though everyone knows his common knowledge about the infidelities in you guys' marriage, he's never made a bad comment. He's never da-da-da. And Miss Nell was saying, hey, that's my husband. That's my significant other. I'm going to stand beside him regardless, because that's my person. That's my people, you know. But I can't control everything that come out his mouth, which is very confusing to me, because she's saying this to 2 women that have had to explain from this exact position. Then they do this fake behind mess and tell me, so 2024 is all behind us. That's Tisha, you know, with her phone at. Anyway, you know what I'm saying? And you could tell the energy at the table is uncomfortable, because if you take a look over at Trisha, because Trisha new to being on this camera like this all the time. Trisha's face is like, girl, I am uncomfortable. Okay. And another thing, notice how Trisha directed her energy when she went to talking about she having a little cowboy themed party or whatever, how she directed her energy toward Miss Nell and was asking Miss Nell, do Miss Nell want to go? Because she peeped this fake ass energy that these other 2 on the other side of the table had. We seen what time Miss Nell asked them about them doggone Negroes, they went to looking crazy. Don't make no doggone sense. In the next scene, we got Maurice meeting up with Jalen. They up there shooting pool. He asking Jalen about what's going on in his life. Jalen like, yeah, I'm doing different things with with departments or whatever it is that he doing his real estate thing. He going on job interviews. He doing IT right now. He thinking about moving to Colorado. And Maurice just having these little conversations with him or whatever. And then he go ahead and really get to what he wanted to talk about. I was like, child, you should have went ahead and got them. Anyway, he asked him, I was talking to your mama or whatever about the family business, what was your thoughts on it? I'm like, boy, you already know his thoughts. Go on, get to what gut punched you, baby. Go ahead, Jalen, to have a grown man conversation with this. Okay. Jalen say, hey, I feel like I have grown to know the Scotts very well. He was like, what you mean by that? Don't make this child get specific with you. Katrina give you examples. Well, he ain't no child. He a grown man. But you know what I'm saying. Anyway, Jalen goes to let him know. He said, is it going to be like Maurice at the top and then you passing out orders, go take Monster here and all of this like that right there? Jalen tells Maurice that he feels that, he doesn't give the same lenience to him that he gives to Monster. Because at first he said leash and he was trying to find a better word, but I just phrased it how I wanted to phrase it. That's what he was basically letting Maurice know. He gave him an example. I feel like when we were both in the house together, you would always come and ask me to do stuff, and your son sitting right there playing the game the same way that I am. Then Maurice gets in the confessional and says, well, you parent each child differently. Hold up, player. That boy say that you would always come and ask him to do something. If my memory serves me correct, I remember that Kimmy used to be getting on to you about not getting on to Monster to help her around the house. Interesting. We're going to go ahead and move on, though. Actually kind of sad the more that I look at it, because Maurice tries to go more in depth. Did you feel less loved? Do you feel like I loved Monster more? And he like, yeah, because that's your actual son. He was like, I'm not your actual son. And Maurice like, you're not. He was like, no, that's not what I'm saying, but like that's your blood son, like that's your child, you know what I'm saying? And it just goes to show like it had to be some type of difference like really shown, because, and I can use my real life as an example. I was raised by my stepfather. I didn't feel a difference. You feel what I'm saying? Like there wasn't a difference in how, because me and my siblings, we're all adults now. There wasn't a difference in how we were raised and how we were treated, and the care that was shown toward us. There's no difference. You know what I'm saying? So it's really sad to hear this young man say this. But anyway, we're gonna move on. Jalen stood 10 toes on what he said, you know what I mean, or whatever, and how he felt and all that stuff. And doggone Maurice, Maurice is just saying that, about the whole raising each child the different ways and all of this. When somebody marries into a relationship, when somebody got a child, that's a parent by choice. You choose to get into that or whatever like that. And Jalen was even like, maybe I held back from you because I didn't want to be disappointed if you and my mama ain't work out. Which I hear him, but at the same time, we're kind of like, but at the same time, why would you take that in with his brother that's still connected to him? I feel like he just pleasantly bowed out of that conversation. He didn't want to keep getting no deeper. And respect, Jalen, respect. In the next scene, we meet up with Ken. He over there, he done met up at his homeboy Will's shop. And honey, if I must say myself, well, look at her. Hey, Will. Anyway, we're going to go and keep moving. Oh, yeah, my bad, y'all. Chris was there, too. Chris Fletcher. My bad, y'all. Anyway, they all came in. They sat down with the talking. Will was like, oh yeah, I heard you painted the gym, didn't you? And they were like, no, that was my son, Lance, And go ahead and get into the conversation. They finna talk about Marquise or Marquez or however you say his name, child. Talk about how he just walked on up in the house or whatever like that. And the homeboy was like, well, maybe he followed his daughter in the house and, he followed behind whatever like that. And Ken was like, I wasn't there. It was Trish there, her friend. Now, I can't remember correctly. I'm not sure. But I could go for, okay, you walked in the house behind your daughter holding some of her stuff. Okay, I'm going to accept that. Nigga, you just walked. You just walked in their house. The last episode. Like, what? Did it twice to make sure you didn't miss the disrespect. It reminds the fellas that he's a gentle giant. And recently he tried to invite Marquise over to the house so they could all sit down and have a conversation. See, that's what I was laughing about earlier. Because when he came in there to have this conversation that Ken talk about, child, Marquise bust through the door then. Okay, like, sir, so I'm going to need you to knock. But anywho, he came on in the house or whatever like that. He telling them, he explaining them what happened. About how this conversation, it started off all right. Then baby, it immediately got escalated. He had to get up. Stand up on me, told him, hey, go ahead and get up out of here. Yeah, I can't want to get up out of here. And they got the scuffling. You know what I'm saying? Look. How it sounded when they were scuffling, girl. We didn't get a chance to see nothing, child. All we seen was Marquise just coming to the frame, just all disheveled, So Ken is trying to explain to the fellas why, you know what I'm saying? He been trying to up here care about Marquise' feelings and cater to his feelings. And Chris Fletcher was like, why? You ain't trying to marry him? Or whatever like that. And he was like, well, this is how we get to the next level. This is how we get past the situation. And he the only one that don't want to cooperate. It ain't her. And Chris Fletcher was like, well, it normally don't take about 7 to 8 years if you don't get handled with it. Yeah, the homeboy will say, hey, man, maybe do you think you're looking at this situation like some type of puzzle pieces that you just got to figure out this puzzle? You taking it up as like some type of challenge, like you really sticking in this situation because you trying to figure out this puzzle. And he was like, Ken was like, well, your life got puzzle pieces. We all got to put the pieces to the puzzle together. And Will say, no, sometimes you got to put the puzzle back in the box and get another puzzle. He was like, no, if the puzzle worth looking at the puzzle. He was like, no, sometimes the puzzle ain't got all the pieces. He said, well, we got all the pieces, doggone it. I say, Ken, say, boy, y'all better back up off. Listen. Ken ain't coming up off Trish. You heard me? Ken ain't coming up off of Trish. Period. Homeboy does pose a very good question. Why are you sticking around with all of this going on? Which is a good question because this man ain't got no kids, only got a good job, got a little money, whatever like that. I'm not sure. I don't know these people. We don't know these people. Anyway, but what it looked like from the show. Why you sticking around this situation? So Fletcher asked a friend, Will, if you were in this situation, what would you do? And he was like, the whole situation, like the whole situation. Oh, Trish would have been a thing of the past. And I can't even be mad at that because the position that Ken is in, it's like, hey, this is a lot. But he lets us know, though, he loves Trish. He love her. Like I told y'all, you heard me? He ain't coming up off of Trisha. You heard me? He ain't coming up off of her. In the next scene, we meet up with Maurice, Kimmy, Letitia, and doggone Marceau. You know what I'm saying? We meet up with all of them. They sit down. They having dinner. They first start off discussing the DEI and why Tisha feels like that is what is causing the holdup with her son's application to Michigan. And then Marceau goes into, hey, man, we don't need to be worried about the government anyway. That's why we started our group, the comeback group that we started, doggone it, so we could depend on each other. And da-da-da-da. Okay, boom. They do all of that. And then they go into the conversation. Let's talk about Jalen. All right. So Marceau was just like, Jalen came to me. We was talking or whatever like that. And here go Maurice. Oh, he asked you for help. He was like, nah, he asked me for help. He just asked me about, do you know a contract or whatever like that? I'm like, nigga, help. Okay, he asked you for help. It's okay, baby. But I can see, because I didn't, they did a little flashback. Jalen had a conversation with Marceau and how he looks at him like a father figure and the reasons why he does not look at Maurice as a father figure. So I could tell, well, it seemed to me at least, that Marceau was kind of slick side trying to protect Jalen because he was like, oh no, because Maurice was like, yeah, he look at you like a father figure. That's why y'all relationship is different. And Marceau was like, no, it's more like this, Maurice. Like he was trying to ease it on by, And at this point, Jalen is grown. Maurice, if you feel that bad about it, baby, work on your relationship with him now. Okay? Even Kimmy said that her relationship with Jalen changed. Maybe yours can too. Maurice had started going into trying to explain the reasons why he treated Jalen different from Monster. He like in our family, there was a hierarchy. You treated the oldest child because they were next in line a certain way than what you treated the youngest child. Kimmy came through and sliced that thing like a piece of pie, baby. Kimmy said, nah, Ava, I feel like he treated Jalen differently as well. I've had these conversations with Maurice. I felt like he was harder on him. I even told him, well, let's see when Monster get here, when Monster moved in, let's see how you gonna handle these things. Okay? Honey, a mess. Not Marceau and Maurice arguing at the table. Not child. Honey. After Kimmy done expressed herself, Maurice tried to jump in and he was leading with the word but, go ahead, get ready to deflect and defend. And Marceau called it out and was like, hey man, when we get done telling you something, you start your sentence off with but, it's like you defending your position. And it's already hard enough to talk to you as it is. You know what I'm saying? And I understand where Jalen is coming from because I grew up with the golden child, i.e. Maurice. So I get where Jalen is coming from because Monster is the golden child 2.0 or whatever like that. And here go Maurice. He said, you sound like Chris Fletcher. Marceau say, you sound pathetic. honey, Maurice done told Marceau, you lie all the time, yeah. I say, boy, they with the mess. But anyway, that's the end of the episode. Y'all don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank y'all for staying tuned this long. I really appreciate it. Hope everybody have a good day. Peace.